Mark Voyger, military analyst, former advisor to commander of the U.S. Army in Europe, joins me now. Hello and welcome.
Thank you, Vladimir. Thank you for inviting me.
On your opinion, which city will be liberated next after Kherson?
Well, I would like to see all Ukrainian cities being liberated, and the sooner the better.
Everyone wants to see that, yeah.
Terrible toll that the Russian occupation is exacting on the Ukrainian population. But look, I think obviously any cities east of where your forces are now. I mean, your forces will have to first, of course, establish themselves on the left bank of the river. After having retaken and liberated Kherson, so I would imagine an offensive in the eastern direction would make more sense. You know, I'm obviously not privy to what your command is doing in your general staff, but an advance to the east, Melitopol and other cities in the area, would actually put the Russian forces in Crimea in an extremely difficult position. And also, of course, it'll be great to see some sort of a counteroffensive to push the Russian force away from cities like the towns and cities like Bakhmut and others, so that they can secure this strategic direction, the strategic communication nodes, and of course prepare the groundwork for liberating Donetsk and the entire Donetsk region.
Yeah, thank you. Winter's coming. To what extent winter can slow down the Ukrainian counteroffensive? And who will benefit from these extreme cold conditions, Ukrainian army or the Russians instead?
Well, as you quite well know, traditionally there have been two fighting seasons. The summer one in late August, mid-September, which was the case in 2014. And then the winter fighting season, which usually starts around mid-January till mid-February, which was the case in 2015 when the Russians took over Donetsk airport. But in this case, of course, the challenge for the Russians is that they have lost the initiative. They're fighting on foreign hostile territory. You have tremendous advantage, the momentum, the training, the weapon systems that you receive from the West. The planning is superior, the planning on the Ukrainian side, and the overall preparation for the war. And so I don't anticipate your forces being slowed down by the winter. Also, on top of that, as you quite well know, the so-called frozen land phenomenon allows for the movement of heavy armor, that is tanks, carriers and others. So I would say I don't expect your forces to slow down, and the winter will be very difficult for the Russian forces, and they got to prepare for a serious offensive on your end, I think. So this way, that's why actually Putin would be desperate to reach some sort of agreement, so he can try to freeze the conflict. At least that will be his midterm objective. I don't think your politicians would agree to that. I don't think your military will stop, but we can expect more overtures on the Russian side, trying to convince the world and the West that supposedly Russia is ready to negotiate, but you are pushing for continuing the war. Again, I see a very difficult winter for the Russian forces, and your forces will keep advancing, in my opinion.
Do you anticipate that there could be any kind of negotiations between Ukraine and Russia even before the winter starts?
I don't see why this would happen. As I said, I'm just saying what in the mind of Putin and his leadership, given the miserable state of affairs of their forces currently, and the humiliating defeats, it would be logical from their point of view if they could at least try to reach some sort of an agreement to try to halt the Ukrainian advances. I don't see your political elite, your president, your government agreeing on any negotiations. I don't see an appetite in the West to push your leadership in the direction of negotiate settlement or ceasefire. I think it's been stated clearly that first and foremost, Ukraine has to restore its sovereignty, liberate its territories, and then, only then, we can even begin to think of negotiating with Russia. And who in Russia are going to talk to? Putin, the international terrorist and mass murderer. Obviously, that will be unacceptable. And so I don't see the prospect of I don't see any serious appetite or for any negotiations of this nature.
Thank you. And now let's draw some attention to another Ukrainian neighboring country, Belarus. So let's assume if Belarus dares to fully intervene in the war in order to cut off the arteries of Western aid, how likely is this, and will it change the situation on the Eastern Front?
Well, they didn't do it last year. That was the time when maybe such a move would have made more sense, and they would have maybe had more success. In other words, contributing forces to the Russian advance toward Kyiv, and also trying to cut off communications back then. Nowadays, with the amount of weapons that you receive from the West, with the training that your forces have, with the overall disposition of the forces, I don't see how. I don't see the number of forces in Belarus that, in terms of capabilities, and I don't see the also the will to fight within the Belarusian leadership or military to lead them to success. I mean, yeah, they could launch some sort of an attack, but how successful is it going to be? Obviously, the terrain is quite difficult in this Polessia region. And obviously this will be met with a strong reaction by the West, by NATO, especially after the incident near the Polish border. Imagine if on top of that the West sees a massive movement of troops from the direction of Belarus. The first thing the Poles are going to think, well, what are they up to? When are they going to cross the border in our direction? Probably. So there will be a tremendous pressure on the part of the West against Lukashenko. I don't think he's interested in also contributing so prominently to this disastrous war. Everybody can see that Russia's army is a Potemkin formation. It's a terrorist gang, really, of rapists and murderers. So, I cannot rule it out. Of course, your military must be planning for this, and I'm sure they are. But I don't see the Belarusians contributing, other than allowing the Russians to operate out of Belarusian airspace and hitting targets in Ukraine. That's actually the greater damage than Belarusian forces moving at this stage against Ukraine.
Yeah, thank you so much for your answers. That was Mark Voyger, the military analyst and former advisor to Commander to the U.S. Army in Europe. Thank you so much. Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Latest news, trends, and analytics on all about Ukraine. Like, share, and subscribe. Any questions, proposals, and comments, contact us via email.